Hello and welcome. This is From Upside Down to Right Side Up, Tips for the Transition, and I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. This is my continuing series of conversations with women that are strong and supportive and who have inspiring stories of transformation to tell, and they're courageous enough to share them with us here. Today's guest is Michelle Bliss. This is a story that takes a lot of guts to share in a forum like this. It's about hurting herself, hiding, and healing. From the outside, Sarah was very successful. On the inside, she struggled mightily. We call this episode, The Power to Heal Your Life. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you for having me, Maria. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your guests and to share my story.
I'm so happy you are here. Many of us have a turning point from which we pulled ourselves out of some dark hole and into the light. Would you tell us what happened in April 2005 for you?
Absolutely. I feel I need to do a little backstory prior to April of 2005. I grew up in a household with both physically abusive parents, an alcoholic mother who also happened to be incredibly narcissistic. And so if she set a bar for something, you reached the bar and then it was, it's actually up here. And so I believed that if I made $100,000 a year and I weighed a perfect 110 pounds, that the sky would open and all these wonderful things would fall into my life, and love and happiness and peace and harmony and joy and all those things that I had always wanted would just mysteriously appear. And when I got there, and I actually got to 109 pounds because I'm an overachiever, and when I got there, I was a shell of a person. I was miserable. I was suicidal, depressed, anxiety, you name it, all of those things. And so April 2005 was a pivotal point for me. I was driving home from was in the middle of a 3-day real estate seminar, and I was on during the seminar, they had us write down our greatest fear on a board, and we were supposed to all go up onto the stage and break the board by punching it, right? And I couldn't do it. I was one of 50 people in the room, and I just physically could not do it. And so we sat, not physically, emotionally, I couldn't do it. So we sat at a table, and there was 8 other ladies sitting at the same table with me, and on my side was this rather overweight lady, and she was crying, just sobbing. And on her board, she had written down that her greatest fear was that she was going to be alone because of her weight. And I was sitting there having the exact same fear. However, I was in the perfect shape, had this great job, right? Had all of these, on the outside, my life looked like it was perfect. And I'm sitting here looking at this woman in my mind. I'm like, you have no idea. Like, even if you are skinny, the sky doesn't open up. There's no perfect answer to anything. And so I got in a very, very dark space from that moment. And I refused to go up onto the stage and break my board. And so I left there that day, and I drove home, and I decided that was it. I couldn't take it anymore. The black hole was swallowing me up, if you will. And I sent a series of very cryptic email messages out, and the line just said, "I quit," in the subject line. So some significant people in my life received that email the next morning, and I proceeded to take a nice cocktail of a bunch of assorted drugs that I had in my cabinet. And my intent was to end my life that night. At some point, I got ill. And that's what the doctors say actually saved my life, was that I vomited and got all of the narcotics out of my system. And based on what I took to the hospital with me, my sister-in-law's a nurse, and so her and my brother came to my aid the next morning. And she scooped up all of the medications I had taken and took them to the ER with us. And had I not gotten sick, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because it would have taken my life. And so at that point, my secret was out, right? I sent emails telling the world that I quit, and what a strong statement to make is that I quit. And because literally I was broken. And, I have a lot of shame around that, Maria, because on the surface, my life looked so good. Right. And I grew up in a trailer with this, this circumstances that didn't set me up for success. And yet I went out into the world and I had a great career. I had friends. I owned a home. I had a beautiful car. I had beautiful clothes and jewelry. I took great vacations. And on the surface, everything looked like, God, she's really got it all together. But there was always that ... She's got it all together, but look where she came from, right? And so for a girl who came from that, look at how good she's doing. So it was sort of a, like, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, well, you're doing really good because you came from all of this stuff, right? So it never really felt good. But my secret was out, and my boss knew, my friends knew, and that wasn't the first time that I had tried to commit suicide. I actually, my first attempt was in 5th grade. And so, but now I couldn't hide from it anymore. I was in the emergency room and everyone knew. And so I was forced to get help. And so that was the pivotal point for me, that I knew that if I didn't start healing the core of what my issue was and really dealing with what I call the black hole, and the black hole is just that space that you get into that there's no light above you, no light below you, nothing around you, and you just feel like you're free falling. And it's a really ugly space to be in, and it's debilitating. So there was days that I didn't go out of bed because I was in the black hole. So at that point, I had to get help. And I think I shared with you, my friend was getting a reading from Sunny Dawn Johnston, and I kept coming through in that session. And Sunny said to my friend, I don't know who this is, but someone in your life needs to come see me. And so that's how my journey started down a path that changed my entire life. And so that one moment and that decision to try to kill myself ended up becoming one of the greatest blessings in my life, because not only did I heal the core of my pain, I wrote a book in the process, and I've attracted a wonderful person into my life, and I no longer have suicidal thoughts, and I look forward to growing old. And so it's something that was really horrible on the surface. You try to kill yourself, right? I mean, that's not a good thing, but I can look at that and say that that was probably one of the best things that happened to me, because it created an opportunity that I could get the help I needed.
Wow. That's just an amazing story, Sarah Michelle, that you've come so far. And sometimes we have to be so broken in order, and please, dear God, not so broken that in your case that you actually died, but that you could come back from that recognizing that you had to make some significant changes. So when you said you got help, I'd like to hear just a little bit more about that. Tell us what did you do to help you get out of that black hole and back into the light?
So I did see a traditional therapist. It wasn't my first go around with traditional therapy. That's a wonderful profession. However, I needed something bigger, something more, something deeper, and something to connect me with the higher purpose. I now believe very strongly that everything in life happens to us for a reason, and that there are no mistakes. And so traditional therapy doesn't really allow for that type of healing and growth. And so I did seek out alternatives. I started reading all kinds of different types of books. I opened my mind to different modalities. I read Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life more than once. I just started prescribing to, again, different modalities that supported a deeper understanding. Because you go through something like that and you have all this trauma and you have all this shame and all of this pain, a tremendous amount of shame. And for me, the shame was that why can't you be happy? What is wrong with you? You've created this great life that people would kill for. What is wrong with you? So tremendous shame and judgment in that. And so when I started seeking out alternatives from traditional therapy, I started learning that there's more to the story, right? There's more to the story. There's more to understanding that you choose this experience. The first time I read that in Louise Hay's book, I actually threw the book across the room So I'm like, why would I choose this experience, right? So I just became a seeker of different types of healing, and so and you know, people showed up in my life to teach me those things too. So it's sort of when you ask for support from the universe, you get it, right? And things showed up in my life that I never even knew existed that supported my journey.
You know, that I'm so glad you shared that, because there are so many of us out here in the world who struggle with different aspects of our lives. And traditional therapy certainly has its role. I'm so glad, though, that you shared that you sought, when that wasn't working for you, when it wasn't feeling quite right, that you sought out something else. There are so many options for us out there. And I think it's so important that you shared that you sought out different things.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a trial and error thing with each of us to find what works for us individually. And traditional therapy isn't always it. And finding new modalities, new people, coaches in your life that bring different aspects of going deep and starting to heal from the inside out. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, suicide is a real topic that we just don't talk about. We don't talk about it enough. And certainly recently we have started to talk about it more. But really, I think just stop judging. Stop, you know, I was judging myself, and even still to this day, you know, I have to remind myself, stop judging and just embrace what you're feeling, and for the experience of what it is, and the opportunity to grow and evolve. And, you know, that judgment piece of it just causes so many other issues.
Indeed, it does. So I love what you said, that you were kind of hiding in plain sight, weren't you, Sarah Michelle?
Absolutely, absolutely. No one knew.
Yeah, you were wearing this mask that was so believable, and going through the motions of your everyday life and nurturing a very responsible career, yet living in that dark place when you were alone, and all of that takes a toll, an emotional toll. You hit on some of those emotions, the shame, the anxiety, the depression. I would love it if you would go a bit deeper into those emotions in our next segment. Would you do that for us?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And stay tuned, everyone, for this next part of my conversation with Sarah Michelle Bliss. I think you're going to be inspired. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. Till next time.